everybody. Thank you so much for joining today's session as a part of Research Impact Week. We're really glad to have you here for today's workshop, Identifying Journals for Publication. Our presenter today is Stephanie Henderson, who will walk us through some strategies for choosing the right journal for your manuscript. But during this presentation, feel free to drop your questions in the chat or unmute yourself. Just as a quick reminder, we will have workshops each day this week at noon, so we hope you'll join us again. But if you can't attend live, no worries at all. We'll be recording today's session, and these recordings will also be sent out afterwards. And finally, we'll be sharing a short survey link at the end of today's session, so please take a moment to fill that out as it helps us improve our future programming for you all. But with that, I'll turn it over to our presenter today, Stephanie Henderson.
Great. Thank you so much, Annabelle. My name is Stephanie Henderson, and I am the Associate Director of Outreach and Engagement for the Medical Center Library. Today, we're going to discuss ways where we can identify journals for publication. So it's our first workshop for kicking off Research Impact Week, and we want to thank you all for being here. And again, as Annabelle said, we're going to record this session. So today's class will help you discover how to create a quick list of journal options for your manuscript. You're going to be able to learn about matching tools and investigate a variety of options for disseminating your work. If you have questions throughout this presentation, please post them in the chat. We'll have some time for question and answers at the end as well. So as you can imagine, the first step in choosing where to publish is to create a list of journals that are relevant to your discipline or your research topic. So we're going to cover a few different options for creating that list. And the first option is going to be searching for a topic. So you can create a search strategy if you don't already have one, to find journals on your topic. And so then you can find articles that are already been published on your topic. This can be a very broad search. It doesn't, because we're not really interested in finding exact articles, but more so articles that have a similar theme or topic. So in this example, we proposed a draft title for our article. Our article draft title is Paid Sick Leave and Psychological Distress, an Analysis of U.S. Workers. So once we perform the search, we may want to use filters in the databases to limit articles to the past 5 or 10 years to make sure that we're focusing on finding journals that are currently publishing and that have been publishing on this topic in the recent history. In addition, we may want to focus on U.S.-based journals, though they're not easy to filter for, because most country-based filters focus on the location of the authors publishing in the journal, not on the geographical focus or location of the journal. And finally, we may want to limit to English language only if our articles, if we plan to publish our full text article in English. So you can use one or more of the well-known databases to create a journal list of potential journals that we might publish in. On this slide, there are some databases listed here, but in the interest of time, we're only going to go out and cover one of them. But you can refer to this presentation after the presentation. We'll be sending out the slides with the recording. So you can go back and look at this presentation for steps on how to find article journals in PubMed, Scopus, and Web of Science. I apologize. I have a cold, of course. All this weather is kind of making all of the allergies and everything difficult for some people like me. So if we go to, and this slide just demonstrates how to go to Web of Science and perform a search so that you can create a list of potential journals for for your manuscript. And you can create the list and it'll provide a text file. So you can go to Web of Science, you can put in your search strategy. And then in Web of Science, we have an option for Analyze Results. So you can click on Analyze Results and then select publication titles, and then it'll give you a list of publication titles that have published journals that have published recently on that particular search topic that you've entered in. So again, in the databases, we probably want to use some filters. So the last 5 years, maybe English language, just to make sure that those journals that you're selecting and you're creating a list for, they are publishing recently and on that topic. So you can do a similar search in what Scopus. So Scopus is, one of the largest abstract and citation databases. It includes scientific journals, books, conference proceedings, and again, it's a wide scope. So if you're in science, technology, medicine, social sciences, any of those disciplines are going to be, Scopus is going to be good for you. Web of Science also would be good for you as well, because it also covers various disciplines. It's not just health sciences, social sciences, humanities as well. Again, Scopus, if you're not aware, is owned by the publisher Elsevier. So you're going to get Elsevier journals. So one thing that you can do is you can type in that a search strategy, just like we did with Web of Science. Type it into your search box, click search. You might want to apply some filters. So you might want to limit to the last 5 years, English language. And then there's subject categories, so you might even want to further narrow it down if you're looking at a particular journal in a certain subject area. So you can focus by subjects or disciplines, and then you can export into a CVS file the list of journals that it provides. So there's lots of ways that you can create journal lists based on just searching in the databases themselves. And it's really nice because they have this export feature that will export the journal titles for you. And then PubMed, obviously, if you're in the health sciences, PubMed is a free resource supporting the search and retrieval of biomedical and life science information. So PubMed is independent of any publishing house, and it includes over 5,000 Medline journals. And then it also has the PubMed Central Index as well, which is the NIH-funded research that's freely available. It also includes some standards and books as well. But if you do a search in PubMed, you can, again, the same kind of very broad basic search. You can then save the citations into a file format, and you can create a file, and you can create it by PMID. So a PMID is the unique identifier of all of the records in PubMed. And so then you can go to this other tool called PubMed Reminder, and it will, you can paste those PMIDs into that, and then you can create a list of journals based upon that search. So you have to do a little bit extra by using PubMed Reminder, but it's still a good way to filter the journals that you can, that are options for publishing in that particular subject area. So again, you don't have to limit by subjects for PubMed because it's really biomedical health sciences. But with Web of Science and Scopus, you do have options for limiting by subject areas within those databases. So again, these are just some good ways to find and export lists of journals that are on your topic or on your broad theme or scope of your research. So the other option is Ulrich's Web. So Ulrich's is a database that identifies peer-reviewed, also known as referee journals. It includes in-depth information on periodicals covering many subjects including academics and scholarly journals, open access, peer-reviewed. That also has some popular magazine titles and newspapers and newsletters. So you're going to want to make sure that you limit to refereed and academic journal articles. So again, if you go to Ulrich's Web, and again, this is a subscription database that you have access to through the University of Kentucky. So you would go to the Ulrich's Web, you would paste your search strategy into the box and click search. And then in the results page, you would use the limit your results filters to narrow down to specific types of journals or specific subject areas. And then when you can check once you're done filtering your results, you can check the box to select all of those journals and then click the download option for downloading it into a text file or a Microsoft Excel file. So those are the ways that you would find a list of journals that you might want to publish in based on a search for your topic. So now we're going to go into another way to create a list of journals would be using some of the journal selection tools that are available. So on our publishing in the health sciences, research and publishing in the health sciences guide, we do have some options available for you. And if you click on the selecting appropriate journals link, you'll find some tools that we're going to discuss in this next section. So beyond searching in the databases for a list of journals, you can also use the journal selection tools kind of listed on this page. These tools can be very helpful for matching you with the right journals for your research topic. So these journal selection tools will likely require you to have a title and an abstract, and then keywords, if you do have them, are also nice. Um, and the tools use a variety of techniques to mine the text that you enter for mentions and key concepts, and then it matches the concepts to the context in the journal, to the content in the journal. So some of these companies and organizations who create these tools may store the text that you enter and monitor the results that you clicked on. Typically, the information is used to improve the accuracy of the tool. It's typically not shared with anyone, or none of the information that you enter is directly identifying. However, it's always good to read the FAQ to see how they use your data. So on this slide, you can see that there's different tools available, and a lot of them are vendor tools. So Elsevier, Journal Finder. Most of your major publishers have journal recommenders or journal finders. So Springer Nature, Elsevier, Taylor and Francis, Sage, and Wiley. Independent from a specific publisher would be Jane, which we like to recommend. We use it a lot in the health sciences. And then the manuscript match from Web of Science. And we don't have time to go over all of these today, but I'm just going to show you an example of what Jane will do. So if you have an article title and you have your abstract and you have your keywords, you can just take this information and copy it, and then you can paste it into Jane. So you can just enter you can copy and paste the abstract and titles and then click Find Journals. And then it will supply you a list of journals. And it first searches Jane searches the first of the 50 articles that are most similar to your input. And so for each of these articles, a similarity score between that article and your input is calculated. The similarity scores of all the articles belonging to a certain journal or author are summed to calculate the confidence score for that journal or author. The results are ranked by the confidence score, and they also included in the results are the journal's influence scores. So you can see here that based upon the abstract that I entered and the title, it's going to recommend these types of journals. And it will also tell you if it's Medline indexed, though that's really nice to make sure that it's a index in one of the databases. So this is an example of Elsevier's Journal Finder tool. You just basically enter the same thing, kind of like Jane, you enter the title and the abstract it's required for your paper and able to easily identify journals that could be best suited for publishing on that topic. So Journal Finder uses smart search technology and a field of research specific vocabularies to match your paper to scientific journals. Again, using the Elsevier Journal Finder, you can select journals based on your impact factor, the acceptance rates, the time to first decision, time to publication. That's really nice. And it also will show you the publication fees associated with publishing in a certain journal. Those are also options. Again, so if you use Elsevier's Journal Finder, that's only going to find Elsevier journals. So any of those publisher specific journal finders, those obviously are only going to find journals that are specific to that publisher. And so the other thing that you can do is maybe you can ask a mentor if they know of any journals that you can consider. If you haven't had any very good options at this point, you may also ask a librarian for recommendations for any topic-specific databases that you might search for journals. So, for example, if I was, I help the College of Nursing, so I would recommend searching in CINAHL, a nursing database, for nursing journals if I was going to help some of my nursing students or nursing professors. So we have several subject specific databases at UK. So PsycInfo is for psychology and behavioral health. Agricola is for agricultural information. So if you don't know what the subject databases are available at UK, definitely ask a librarian and they can help you identify some of those more niche subject specialty databases that you could do a search in and retrieve potential journals for your manuscript. So now that we have a list of journals to review, we need to gather some helpful information to better determine which of the journals you should submit to. So some options to consider is whether a journal matches your research topic, or the readership of the journal, the author guidelines, open access, and article processing fees. So one of the first steps is to determine the readership of the journal. So this can be difficult to assess if you're new to a field. So some considerations that might help you determine the readership are to read the scope and the aim of the journal. Does this match your research topic? Review the past issues of the journal. What types of topics has the journal covered before? Review the biographies of the editorial board. Do they express research areas that are relevant to your work? And consider your own reading habits. So have you read in this journal? Have you read articles, or has your mentor read articles that are published in this journal? Things to consider. So that you also want to make sure that you familiarize yourself with the article types that are published by each journal and any specific guidelines. So these guidelines often cover the journal's purpose and scope, and then the types of articles that they publish, any page restrictions, the number of figures and tables allowed, and other requirements that you might need to keep in mind. So if you plan to publish a case report or a specific type of review or any other special type of research, you should review what types of articles the journal accepts to see if you can find those articles that are recently published in the journal, just to make sure that the journal is a good fit for your work. Most author guidelines are easily found on the journal's homepage. So it usually says guidelines for authors or author instructions. And again, those will cover the purpose, the scope, the policies, the manuscript preparation guidelines, and the submission process. So one thing to note, I have this quote here at the top. It says the journal reserves the right to reject manuscripts that don't adhere to the instructions for authors. This is really important. You don't want to do all of the work to, get your manuscript submitted to a journal only to find out that you didn't follow the directions. You didn't follow the guidelines. And then again, you also don't want to do all this work and submit, a case report if case reports aren't published in that journal. So you just need to do a little bit of homework to make sure that you are submitting your manuscript to the appropriate journal. All right. And finally, you'll want to determine if the journal is a subscription-based journal or if it is open access. So open access is a set of principles for making research outputs openly available, free of cost or other access barriers. So there are many versions of open access journals, and they're usually described in colors. So gold open access journals make all of the articles freely available on the journal's website, usually by charging the author an article processing fee prior to publication. So there's also hybrid access journals. So hybrid open access journals contain a mixture of open access articles and closed access articles. And the content is made up of open access, usually, again, by charging the author an article processing fee. And so then there is green open access. Green open access articles are published in open or closed journals, and they're made openly available in an institution's repository or another archive by the author or institution under the permission of the publisher. So this is a promotional plug for tomorrow's workshop. So the tomorrow's workshop is citation open at open access citation advantage, myth, reality, or somewhere in between. So our speakers tomorrow will be discussing the open access citation advantage in this in this webinar, and it's going to explore whether open access articles are truly earn more citations. And the workshop will break down the basics of OA publishing. So if you want to know more about OA publishing, check that out. And then it also is going to dive into some research that our scholars have done on open access citation trends here at the University of Kentucky. So you don't want to miss that one. I just had to plug that for a second. So now let's go on to more about open access and what the library can do for you as far as open access fees. So again, some open access journals don't charge a fee for publishing with them, but others do. And so this page, it aims to inform you of the open access journals that provide discounts for their article processing charges. And because the University of Kentucky Libraries has a membership or journal subscriptions, you do get a discounted article processing fees. So you can go to this website. Um, it's on the library's page, and it tells you all of the different areas, the STEM publishers, the humanities and social sciences, and it will tell you if we have any kind of discounts available. For BMJ case reports, we do have a fellowship code that covers the APCs. And so for that one, you'll just need to email the Medical Center Library, mclib at uky.edu to get that fellowship code. All right, so now our second round of considerations all focus on the quality of the journals. So including the evaluating the reputation of a journal or a publisher, determining if the journal is indexed in a major database, evaluating the journal's impact in a discipline, and then the quality or presence of the journal's peer review. So several industry initiatives exist to maintain transparency and ethical standards among journals and publishers. And these initiatives can help us determine a journal's reputation. So the Committee on Publication Ethics, or COPE, provides advice and guidance on the best practices for dealing with ethical issues in journal publishing. So aimed primarily at the editors and publishers, the journals and publishers can become a member of COPE to show that they intend to follow the highest standard of publication ethics. So you can search the COPE membership list to see if the journal or publisher that you are potentially publishing with is a member of COPE. There's also the Directory of Open Access Journals is an independent and fully open access or gold open access journals with its mission to increase visibility, accessibility, and reputation of open access scholarly research journals. So the journals must apply for membership, and then they have to meet a minimum criteria to be added to the directory. So journals that meet all 7 criteria additionally receive a DOAJ seal, which has been awarded to about 10% of the journals indexed in the DOAJ. Journals can be removed from the directory if they cease publishing or if they're no longer adhering to best practices and they haven't published enough journal articles in the calendar year or for suspected editorial misconduct. So again, you can search the DOA directory to see if the publisher or the journal is in there. And so there's several other industry groups who have similar initiatives to COPE and the DOAJ. One that takes a slightly different approach is Retraction Watch, which provides news stories about retracted articles that has a fully searchable database so that you can learn more about the retractions issued by journals of your interest. So you want to make sure that you're not selecting a journal that has a lot of retractions. And if you are, why are they retracted? Why has this research been retracted? You can also take a look at this this article from Orman. It's about predatory publishing. So this one takes a look at, what is a predatory art. This one, sorry, takes a look at the different characteristics of an article and it shows you, is it predatory or legitimate? So, for example, the journal scope. So if it's narrow in scope, it's probably legitimate. If it's overly broad in scope, it could be predatory. There's a few other ones about peer review. So if they're publishing, if it's a policy that has 2 to 3 reviews submitted, I'm sorry. This slide really this is for a different presentation and I just realized that. But again, this one, we're going to talk about predatory publishing in a couple of in a few more slides. So I'm going to halt on that one before before we talk about that. One of the other things that you want to do is decide, and for a journal that you're potentially selecting, is you want to make sure that it's included in a index in a major database. So that's really important for increasing the visibility of the journal. And again, it's important for the dissemination of your research as well. So databases typically have a selection criteria process for how the article or how the journals are indexed in and how they get selected. There's standards and they go under a review process. So if your journal is not indexed in any of the databases and you can only find it on, let's say, Google Scholar, that could be an indication that that might be a predatory publisher. Not everything that's in Google Scholar is predatory, but they do not have any kind of requirements for it being available in the search results. So this is the article that this is the slide about predatory publishers. So again, this has, with the rise of open access for the past probably 20 years now, we've seen predatory publishing. So it is, again, motivated by profit rather than scholarly rigor or scholarship. So these journals publish and publishers solicit articles and abstracts from researchers, usually through email. They typically will email you. They typically target new authors who feel pressured to publish quickly, and they charge a lot of money in order to get your research published. So there's this tool called Think, Check, Submit. It's a checklist that will help you discover what you need to know when assessing whether a publisher is suitable for your research. So this is a good way to double check to see if it's a legitimate publisher or a legitimate journal. Regularly, I have faculty email me and ask me, hey, Stephanie, do you think that this is a legitimate journal? And that's completely fine. I don't mind at all to answer those questions. So if you have a question, if it looks legitimate, but you still want another set of eyes on it, feel free to email us, and we're happy to help you evaluate that as well. And then journal metrics. They can be used to measure and compare and rank journals and research areas. So journal metrics don't measure the quality of the research published in a journal. The best way to do that is providing peer review of the journal's contents. However, the metrics can help us distinguish journals that are important in particular fields or considered a top resource for particular topics. So there's 3 different ways that you can measure journals. So there's the journal citation reports, which are available through Clarivate, the SciMago journal rank, and then the journal indicators. So they're available here. There is a free full version of the last 2, but the journal citation reports, that we have a subscription to that through the University of Kentucky Libraries. And again, this chart tells you what all you can find. And then we did have a presentation last spring in our research workshop series on bibliometric basics. If you want to learn more about bibliometrics or journal impacts factors, or even journal citation reports, you can take a look at the past recordings page of our research workshop series and find that presentation. And so again, round 3, we're almost down to the end, is the timeline. So your final round of considerations related to the timeline the journal uses, such as the likelihood of being accepted, the time from submission to first notice, and whether the journal participates in a journal transfer system. A journal's acceptance rates can be interpreted differently by journals. Some may use the total number of manuscripts received as the base for the percentage calculation, while others will count the reviewed manuscripts as the base number. So in addition, the acceptance rate may change from month to month, depending on the number of papers in the submission system. In addition, the acceptance rate is the size dependent. So for example, the acceptance rate for a journal that receives 1,000 submissions per month shouldn't be considered as the same for a journal that receives 50 submissions per month. So the mean time span from submission to publication varied from 91 to 639 days. And so some journals now offer accelerated publication for selected biomed journals to coordinate publishing schedules with conferences and drug approvals and drug launches. So you can see the links here on the website or on the slide. You can see some links to timelines for accelerated publication. And then it really does depend on the submissions per month as to whether or not, like, how you can decide the acceptance rate. So one of the other things that you can look for is if it has a journal transfer system. So if you submit your journal, um, it can be denied, can be rejected, but then if the publisher uses a journal transfer system, it will automatically be submitted to other journals of your choice. So this example is Elsevier. So if it's rejected by one Elsevier journal, it could, if you allow for it to, you can have it submitted to several others. So that's just one more way, kind of an efficient way to get your manuscript matched and published with a particular journal. And then we have a checklist for finding journals. So again, you can do a search for your topics, a search for your topic in the journals and create a list manually by using the database tools. You can use journal selection tools. Um, You can read the author guidelines and the types of articles, see if it's open access, see if it has a fee, look at the scope and review the past article titles. And then you're going to want to make sure that you check the journal's quality. So you're going to see if it follows COPE or DOAJ standards, see if it's indexed in one of our major databases, look at the journal's impact factor using citation reports. Read about the journal's peer review practices. You always want to make sure that it's following peer review. And then consider the journal's timelines. You know, if you need it published quickly, but it only publishes like quarterly, it's a journal that only publishes quarterly, that might not be good for you. So again, consider whether there's a journal transfer system is another option for you too. And so there are some other helpful dissemination and impact related practices that you might want to consider. So those are UK knowledge, and then create and use an ORCID ID, and then track scholarly citations by setting up an alert in Scopus. So UK knowledge is our open access repository here at the University of Kentucky. And so you can use, you can deposit your research in UK knowledge so that you can disseminate it more to a wider audience. And then you know that it is stored centrally and it ensures long-term preservation of your work. So kind of a couple of things to consider. So how can I make my work open access after I've published? So if you've already published it in a subscription only journal, but you want to make your work open access, you may be allowed to upload a version of the manuscript to the digital repository UK Knowledge. So it might have to be a draft version or like a manuscript submitted version. It typically is not the final publication version. So you need to know if it allows for uploading to a digital repository, and you need to know all this before you sign the author agreement. You need to make sure that you know which version of the article can be uploaded, and if you need to use an embargo. UK Knowledge allows embargoes as well. And then the type of license, usually known as a Creative Commons license, that must be applied as well. So yes, how do you check your publishing agreement? You just search the publisher's websites for things like licensing and copyright, author rights, author reuse, self-archiving. So they're kind of some of the terms that we use. And then you can also use the Open Policy Finder for a resource of publishers' copyright and archiving practices. And then a known issue in scholarly publishing is author name disambiguation. So what of the 6 million authors in major journal citations and abstract databases, approximately 2/3 share a last name or a single initial with another author. So an ambiguous name in a database refers to an average 8 people. So we kind of combat this by creating an ORCID or an ORCID ID or a persistent digital identifier of an online profile that you can set up. So your ORCID ID stays with you regardless of whether you move to another institution, change your name, or change your research field. So a lot of publishers require you to have an ORCID ID. If not, it's really good to have one so that you know and you can attach your work, all of your work, to your ID. So for example, I have published under the name Stephanie Henderson, Stephanie M. Henderson, Stephanie Smith. And again, Stephanie Smith or Stephanie Henderson, that's a very common name. So I have my ORCID ID so that I have this identifier that identifies all of the work associated with me and all of my research. You can also, if you've published in a journal that's indexed in Scopus, you can receive an author profile ID in Scopus, which is really good because you can attach and connect your ORCID ID to that as well. And we're going to talk about UK Now, or Scholars at UK, in the session on Thursday, and that will also you can tie your Scopus author citation alert to your Scholars at UK profile so that they automatically pull in all of your work without you having to do anything. So we're going to talk a little bit about that on Thursday and more about your ORCID ID on Thursday as well. But just so that you're aware, this is something that you can do too. You can set up your author citation alert so that you are sent emails whenever another article is indexed in Scopus that cites your work. So that's also very important. So if you follow the steps on the screen, you can see how to set up your Scopus author citation alert. And again, I want to thank you all so much for your attention today. And if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourselves and we can look in the chat. I noticed that there's things in the chat and I'll get to those in a minute. My information, my email is on the slide here, or the Medical Center Library's email is here as well.